On there.
We
It's
live.
live now.
Hey people, how y'all doing? We're here on the Black Forum, Urban Philosophy, the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are straight up, straightforward, and to the point. Hope I didn't chop that up, Baba. So it's always a pleasure coming on here, being able to interact with the people, to be able to put thought out there, but I think that one of the things that we need to focus on is really pay attention to the work that's being done. Bob Imhotep was on YouTube last night. He was on was that Moorish World TV with the Taharka Bay, and he was talking about Pan Africanism, right? And one of the topics I just want to throw it out there, right? And the thing I want to throw out there is Black acceptance. What does it look like? Because I see a lot of our people, we struggle with accepting ourselves because we live in a society that the status quo is, in America is, capitalism. The status quo is, materialism. The status quo is, being able to be seen as or be liked or be valued by white culture America. But a part of that system is us rejecting ourselves. Many of us, put ourselves in positions, for certain trinkets and successes, but at what cost? So my question is like, what is Black acceptance? And what does it really look like? And I'm not talking about, us just wearing dashikis and, every now and then wearing the traditional colors, but what is real Black acceptance and what it look like? Because right now a lot of our children are growing up not liking themselves because a lot of the images that are projected don't look like them when it comes to value. So I want to throw that out on the floor, and anybody want to pick that up, the floor is open.
Yeah.
To me, Black acceptance is knowing who you are and knowing why you here on Earth, because we all have a purpose. And so, for me to be able to accept yourself, to be able to accept myself, I gotta feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the whole purpose in coming to Earth is to really be reminded of the reason why you came here. And our ancestors, we had a way of life that was about remembrance. And so for me, when I hear the word acceptance, being able to love yourself, being able to accept yourself, I think that's importantly tied to, our purpose, our reason for being here, and us finding a value in ourselves.
Oh, tap. To add on to what the Baba Dakari just said, and when I think about self acceptance, I think about also, like the brother said, knowing who you are. Because in order to truly appreciate who you are and understand what appreciation is about and what it entails, then you got to really know your worth. You got to know your value. You got to know that you are more than just um, flesh. You know what I mean? That you are something more divine, something more sacred. And when you begin to consider that and appreciate that, you can truly embrace who you are. You can truly embrace it and like it and love it and care for it. So when you think about what that look like, that meaning that you're taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? You're promoting your best image and interests. You know what I mean? You really are striving for excellence and higher achievement for Blackness. And you really diving into the struggle in terms of us as a collective. Because a lot of time when you appreciate who you are, you begin to appreciate your brother that look like you. You begin to appreciate your sister that look like you. You begin to appreciate your elders that look like you, and they laid the foundation which you came from. So that's what it looks like. And what it feels like, enjoyment, empowerment, and it began to stir a certain emotion that can galvanize the people towards a particular goal. And that goal is African sovereignty. Hotep.
Anshe.
I'll jump in. And so when I think of Black acceptance, I think of just being unapologetic and not feeling like you have to shape shift in different environments, feeling like you have the audacity to carry that pride in who you are and who your people are wherever you go, right? So some people, they might get around Black folks and they act a very different way than when they're around Yorugu, right? Because they want to, they want to play the game, they want to behave, all right? But you should be able to exist in your authentic Blackness no matter what the space is that you are in. You should be able to carry that and not say, I don't know if that's going to fit into this space right here. So I'm going to hide and put a little piece of me in the background, and I'm going to send a representative. I'm going to put this mask on so that I can be accepted in this space. And that's not true acceptance. That's your desire to be accepted by others. Your desire to be accepted by people who, in truth, they have no value or weighting over your life, right? They have no stance in your life. And so when you have that level of acceptance, I think that you all have said and all have mentioned that it's really a matter of self-acceptance.
Okay, I appreciate that. The reason why I came up with this topic is because I was just thinking about before I came across the information, before I came across the worldview our way and Jiyatu, the concepts that I had in my head were foreign, right? No matter how much I strived to be successful, I was trying to be successful by concepts that wasn't defined or created to benefit me or benefit our people, right? It wasn't until I started to practice African-centered concepts that I started to look at life through an African-centered lens, and I started to make decisions that were beneficial not only towards me, but also our people, right? I started to accept that I was a Black man. I started to accept that, African culture. I started to accept African spirituality. I started to accept, being in front of an altar and praying. So a lot of these things are foreign to us when we grew up in our households, because a lot of this stuff wasn't given to us, right? I remember, the first time that I sat in front of an altar, it took time for me to be able to fully embrace it because it was foreign to me. But I knew it was correct. I knew it was right. So acceptance, right? To accept yourself, right, is to accept that which you are connected to or rooted to. As long as we strive to try to be accepted by white culture America, we will never feel accepted by them. So it will always be an uphill battle. And in that, we destroy who we are in the process of being accepted by people that will never accept us. And the reason why we struggle so much with African concepts is because we've been indoctrinated, under their system of belief. And until we do away with that, we'll never truly accept ourselves, because the society we live in doesn't accept us. And that's the whole purpose of fighting for what? African sovereignty, having our own land, having our own nation, having our own space where we can actually grow and live in our identity and live in our way of life and feel accepted. So my question is, have you ever felt accepted in America?
You was about to go, Baba Shegu?
Now you go ahead, brother. I can wait.
No, you my elder. I defer to you.
No, because what I was just thinking about when the brother Baba Adisa was speaking, that I'm thinking about self-appreciation as a cultural practice. And because when you, like you said, when you accept yourself, you accept everything that you are connected to. I mean, that's the in and out. That's from the A to the N of appreciation. And that means that who you are lies in your culture, and it is what you use your culture to refine and cultivate that sacredness that's in you. And the thing about appreciation, it allows us to grasp it through our education, through our socialization. And then when you begin to do that, you begin to really have a true idea or a true understanding of that. Because in that process of culture and development of their culture, to be immersed in that culture, your understanding about self develops. And not just talking about in a singular sense. Because when we talked about self in Africa at the time, pre-colonial, we always looked at it in a plural context. So self means all of us. So when you talk about self-knowledge, you talk about collectivism. You talk about us as a community. You know what I'm saying? That don't negate our individuality or our personality in the sense that uniqueness, but not only we had an individual personality, but we had a collective personality as a people. Our social ethos, and that's what distinguished us from other people. That what made us great, because we was able to understand that and still function as a collective, as a community, without violating that. You know what I mean? Without devaluing that or pushing that to the side. And that's the thing that you have to be able to get back to. Now, to the brother question, have I ever really felt accepted in this culture, in this country, or appreciated in this country? No. Confusion is what I felt. Overwhelmed, bombarded, oppressed. That's what I felt. Never felt appreciated. And I think that's what drives us early on, is when we're seeking to figure out who we are. Why we ain't evaluated, why we ain't appreciated, why we looked at like this, why we pushed to do this, why we're manipulated to doing that, why we find ourselves in these type of deplorable conditions and circumstances, and it's overwhelming and it's challenging. Hotep.
Hotep, Bob, appreciate that. Bob the car.
Yeah, I would say that most definitely I haven't felt accepted by this country, this system of white power. I've never felt like that. I've been confused to believe that I'm in a safe environment, but the more I woke up, the more I seen things for what it was. I knew that was a false reality. That was a lie. It was a comfort zone that I had to step out of, because like before I came all the way on this path, I was doing research at Morgan State, John Hopkins. I was set up to be able to live my life comfortably. I could have made hundreds of thousands of dollars presenting all across the country. I presented in San Antonio, I presented in Seattle, and I was kind of comfortable with doing that. I thought I was doing my part. Doing analysis of the Black condition and then speaking before people. But it got to a point where it's like I just seen that I had to be on the ground, because when Freddie Gray popped off, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this happening right in front of me. Like, our people in the streets, and we lit, like, to the point where we really trying to burn down the city. These things was impacting my mind a certain way I could never forget it. I'd never been in a place where I'm actually in that city. It's one thing to read about it in a book, but I'm here in Baltimore. And I see this is going on. Like, it's a real live curfew when you go outside. You can't go outside past this time where they locking you up for these reasons. So I'm like, all that martial law stuff, this is really happening right now. And so all that, I've never forgot none of that stuff. And so that made me realize that, absolutely not, we're not accepted. And things like this happen all the time. But sometimes when a wake-up call comes, you got to go all the way in. And I think that's where tragedy is tied to our ability to really wake up, to be able to accept ourselves even more. Because sometimes when tragedy happens, it could destroy us to the point where we don't see the possibility to transform from the situation. I don't want to make it seem like, tragedy is something that we got to welcome. But in every tragic situation, I always think there's an opportunity for us to go deeper into our spirit, into our identity, or come out with more power to be able to create that Black reality that we need. And so, I believe that, when this society makes us feel like we're not accepted, we got to always wonder in our mind, what is it that I could be doing more for myself, for my people, and for our future generations. I believe that's how we should look at it.
Shay, you want to say something, Mama?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that they sum it up perfectly. When you asked the question, I was like, I think I have felt accepted up until the point when I, came into some knowledge. But as they were speaking more, and I'm reflecting back, it was definitely confusion, right? It's that mirage, that facade of a safe space, that facade of, hey, we accept you. And this is coming from somebody who spent 6 years in the military, 6 years in a uniform alongside these people working 16, 18-hour days on deployment, working side by side with folks to the point where you know about their families, they know about your family, and it can create that sense of familyhood, camaraderie, until something pop off, until that those rose-colored glasses are removed from your eyes and something happens and you like, wait a minute, what did you just say? And then you hear the truth come out. And once that truth comes out, it's very hard to unhear it, to unsee it, to unlearn it, to unknow it. Because we saying that we fighting for each other, we fighting for the same thing. But when worse comes to worse to other Africans in this country that has a history of being torturous to Black people, this country that I signed a contract to fight for, you hear that truth and it's just like, you know what? What a fool. What a fool. And so that's exactly what it was. It was a feeling of acceptance, but in truth, it was a naivete. It was a foolishness. It was a I've been granted access into certain spaces, so I've allowed myself to feel comfortable. And if you're not careful, that's exactly what will happen. Sometimes you will be granted into spaces, and it's specifically for the purpose of creating a sense of comfort in you. Because what were to happen if the masses felt that discomfort, felt that fire burning up in them, right? It would be horrible on their end. And so in order to make sure that they are able to create some type of sense of calm, they provide you, my husband uses the term a lot, trinkets. They provide you with these trinkets. Oh, here's this salary. See, we ain't bad, right? Oh, here's this position. See, we ain't bad, right? Right? We treat you good, don't we? And so you have to make sure that you are always clear on who the enemy is. Even if the enemy gives you an invitation to their table, you still have to be clear that a snake is a snake regardless. That's what I gotta say.
Appreciate that. Before I say what I gotta say, I think that, I don't know if that's Bobby Motep or Mama Ife had put a comment out there. It says, is Black self-acceptance a reaction to a lack, I guess, of acceptance from white society? That's a powerful statement. Sometimes things happen and we react, so we accept ourselves because they don't accept us. But if they did accept us, will we accept ourselves, or will we grow further into white madness? Right? I'm gonna say this, right? I've never been accepted in America, but I've been expected to do things by America, expected to fall in line. expected to submit, expected to, you know, follow their rules, expected to be a statistic, expected to go to jail, expected to, you know, be the stereotype, you know, expected to be a deadbeat father, a deadbeat husband, expected. These are expectations, I mean, that are put on us to be able to create the narrative, right? But accepted, never, right? And from what my comrades was talking about, especially Baba the Carre, you look at Frederick Douglass, right? Frederick Douglass, before his mind was open to consciousness, right? He accepted being a slave because that's all he knew. In his book, it's all he knew was being a slave until his mind was open to a reality like, oh, what they doing is crazy. I mean, I could be much more than this, right? And the reality is that the only way for us to accept who we are, we first have to know who we are indigenously as a people, not by the narrative, I mean, of white culture America. See, if our identity is defined by the narrative of our enemy, we'll still be a slave to the system that our enemy wants us to follow. It's a 22 catch. And that's why when you look at social media, you have all of these people that are so-called conscious, right? But still move with white actions. They speak black, but conduct themselves in white ways. And that's the reason why progress is not happening, because we aren't defining our reality by our concepts. We're still defining our reality by their concepts of how we're supposed to be. And as long as we do that, we'll always advance their system, even in the false, you know, expression that we are standing together. Like Baba the Carre said to me, I thought I was doing black work. Until I started to really look at different concepts and started realizing, I mean, that, man, I'm just a smoke screen. I'm doing smoke screen work. And that's what it is. You know, they don't mind us doing work to create distractions. They don't want us doing work, I mean, that pulls us away from, you feel what I'm saying, the smoke screen. I mean, so when it clears up, we see them for what they really are. Because that's the one thing they don't want, you know, because when they're exposed for who they really are, right? And this is the reason why they're going into history books and taking certain things out, because they're trying to rewrite the narrative. But what we got to do is we got to constantly put it right back out there. This is who they are. But it's hard for us to do that when the people that are supposed to be educating aren't living to that standard. And every time that one of our leaders stand up and they do something that challenges the character of who they are, we allow our enemy to be able to find a space to set us back. And that's the reason why we have to be so diligent and disciplined in the work that we do, you know. But accepting us, I mean, is accepting, I mean, that we gotta know that we're gonna be okay without them. Many of us fear that. I seen somebody put in the chat yesterday when Bob was on there talking about y'all complaining like, you know, America ain't good because we talking about the importance of Africa. You know, so my question to y'all is this on the floor, right? Somebody put in the chat, is black self-acceptance a reaction to a lack of acceptance from white society? And I'll allow my comrades to be able to respond.
Hotep, I'm gonna say no, because if your acceptance or your push for self-acceptance is a reaction to white rejection, then it's not truly self-acceptance. You know, self-acceptance is a natural inclination that is birthed inside your immersion into your own culture. You know, that's where it's, you know, where that comes from. It's not a reaction, because, you know, if you just, because that's a thing, like self-acceptance is self-embracement, is self-respect, is self-knowing. And if I go back to what I was mentioning earlier as a cultural practice. When you can't, those two things don't mesh together because it's more of a proactive and conscious push to appreciate yourself. It's not something that you just, oh, I'm just going to accept myself now because they don't want to accept me. That don't even mesh in the same reality. It's not a reaction. It's not a reaction at all.
Yeah, I want to build on what Ababa is saying, and I would agree that is not a reaction. But I'm gonna answer it in two ways, though. First, I want to read something from Nomo about remembrance. It says remembrance is amplified within the community because community is instrumental to the entire process. Community restores our memory through reawakening and reactivating our spiritual gifts. Community helps us to remember who we are by providing spiritual stimulus, the appropriate opportunities to inspire spiritual aspirations. Community is a vital energy source conducive to recharging the spirit. Community remembrance work together. Community and remembrance work together. Community provides the safe space for remembrance to happen, and remembrance empowers the community. And so naturally, we always work to help people to accept themselves so that we could walk in our true power. Naturally, that was a part of the African systems of education. The African spirit systems was about that. The lineage traditions that was passed on to the children. You're going to be a blacksmith. This was to help you to accept who you are, who your parents are, and what we need as a society. We need people who are going to build the wagons. Like Baba Booker T. Washington had his students doing. They built all the buildings on campus. I wouldn't say all of them, but they built a lot of buildings on campus. They built the wagons. They built mattresses. They made these things so that they knew that they had to be able to be self-determining, you know, being able to self-regulating. These are natural things that come from the African mind. So, like self-acceptance is not a reaction to white terrorism. But I would say that white terrorism could trigger black acceptance in this society. Unfortunately, our minds have been, put to sleep. But in this type of situations, certain situations could trigger and make somebody wake up. And that might not even be their intention. They just, just being destructive like they always are. But on the flip side, what it does is it sober somebody up. All of a sudden, they're not high no more. Dang, that just blew my high. You're right. You need to wake up. And we need that sometimes. We need that. And so that's why I spoke about tragedy being a possibility to help us step deeper into who we're supposed to be. And I think when we're in those moments, we can really find, especially being here in America, we can really find ways to really amplify our existence. Because with the book that Baba Disa put out, battle surgery, excuse me, battle surgery, talking about like being able to go within yourself and bring out what you need to be able to do the real manifestation of your spirit, to be able to bring forth your real power. Like that's an uncomfortable thing to go inside yourself and do some surgery. And that's why, in the Ford, I was talking about like how me and Baba Disa, when we was first getting together, he had us out there running 6 miles. But him had me doing all of that. That was a part of me stepping into who I'm going to be, who you see here today. But I did not like it. I was mad at Baba Disa for that stuff. I wasn't screaming at him or nothing. But Baba Disa knew I was angry. I barely wanted to shake his hand after the end of the run. I wasn't really trying to be around Baba Disa after that. I'm like, why you put me through all this? But that's the challenge of accepting yourself, to be able to trigger something in you to go deeper, go deeper. And so I believe that in one aspect, self-acceptance is not about a reaction. However, in this society, we have to be able to see when things do happen. Maybe that means that you're supposed to be doing something different. Maybe that means you're supposed to be going deeper into your African mind to be able to bring out more African power for yourself and for our people. So I believe that we got to be battle surgeons to really be able to bring about that self-acceptance that we need for our people today.
I say, yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree with my comrades. I definitely do. Right. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to look at that question. I want to look at that statement. And I want to say this, right? A lot of the reactions that our people have stem from not being accepted by white culture America. We are the most attacked people on the planet. And we attack not only physically, but psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. We're constantly attacked, bombarded, right? And when you take a black child and you put them in a school system, right, and the education and curriculum being designed around the advancement of white culture America, that child might not be able to articulate not be feeling accepted or feeling like they're in the right place, but their behavior will show that they feel like something is wrong or off. When you take a child and you put him in an environment where though he's surrounded by, authority that don't look like him, he might not be able to articulate, how that pressure or those things make him feel, but his behavior will display that discomfort and things like that, right? It's the reason why when you look at television, you look at YouTube, you see when our people get pulled over, how we react to authority, how we react to, police, because we live in a society where as though that we see things and it plays on us psychologically. So what we do is there's a thing called preset emotional disposition. We set ourselves up to preset how to deal with things. And when we react in a defensive manner, So I do believe, that, we accept certain falsehoods of what it is to be black. We think to be black is to be hostile, is to be irritated. We use these terms like ratchet and stuff like that to define, what white culture America wants blackness to be, right? But when you see black men and women like us developing and building families and rearing their children a certain way, it's not normal to the so-called concept that white culture America wants to have as the image of what it is to be black life, right? To see, Baba Imhotep's children to be at a level of education that they should not be by the standard of white culture America, right? Is something that is to them a threat. But the reality is that's just the normal development that our people are supposed to have, but we haven't been exposed to that. So we can't accept that for us. We'll say things like this, like, why would I send my children to weekend school? Weekend is they're supposed to be off. What? But that's the social norm, right? But Europeans, take their children, they want them to advance and run this country and do all that. They go through all of these different levels of school and stuff. They have all these programs designed for them, but us, what do? Summer, our children out doing nothing, they out there playing around and doing stuff like that instead of them working towards building the next civilization for our people, right? So when we look at black acceptance, right, we can't say that, oh, I accept myself as a black man when you're still living by the parameters, of your enemy. When you're still living by the standards of your enemy. So what I do is I govern myself with concepts, African-centered concepts. Whenever I find myself in a position, I'll look at a concept and I'll be like, you know what? That's white thought. I got to get rid of that. Because this African-centered concept right here is saying that I'm not supposed to argue with my wife. I'm supposed to sit down and have a conversation with her. This African-centered concept right here is saying, that all children are my children. So I have to deal with them, in a loving, caring, supportive, in way that gears them towards becoming better. So when my wife comes to me and says, look, my nephew want to come over. What are we doing this week? Is it okay? I said, it's always okay. It's always okay for him to come over. It's always okay for him to come over because he's always going to learn something. He's always going to gain something. That's the African concept. It's not like, oh, I had something going on. Whenever she bring up family, well, all right, let's go. I'll move stuff around. These things become primary. Other things I can do that later, right? But these things govern me, and what it happens is I become accepting of me, and I accept the man that I'm going to transform into, the African-centered man that I'm going to transform to, right? We say we accept ourselves, right? But let me strip you of all your material things. Do you accept yourself, or do you feel less than? Have you lost your value because you've lost these things? Right? You say you love yourself. You accept who you are, right? Lose some things. The next thing you know, you acting a donkey out here. You acting a fool. And the reality is, when we really looked at accepting ourselves, what constitutes that acceptance? You know? Because I see people all the time, on social media, up and down, seesaw people. They up and down, they up and down. You know why? Because they really have not accepted themselves. You can't tell me that you accept who you are, right? And you get married and you run in the streets. A part of who you are is a married man or a married woman. But you out here doing all this. You haven't accepted yourself. You haven't accepted, the roles that you've taken on and say that you're going to honor and commit to. You know? So when we talk about acceptance, right? What constitutes that acceptance? Right? So we're talking about Black acceptance. What are the things that you think that constitutes Black acceptance? Open up the floor. Look, I feel like Bible, man. The ancestors just jumped on my back.
Why you yelling at my comrades?
And rolled me around the block, man.
It's a lot of things that comes to mind when you say like accepting yourself. I think one of the things is most definitely standing up for the truth. Because like I was talking about earlier with people shape-shifting, with being in different environments, it's not always easy to stand up for the truth. But when we accept ourselves as Black people, it don't matter. I'm still, doing 9 to 5s temporarily during the week. And when I go to work, I always still call my children in the morning. I don't care who I'm riding with. Call my children. And we speak in Black, we speak in African. I always pray with my children in the morning. So even if I'm riding with a white guy in the car, we praying to Olu Demare. And I'm saying it the way I'm talking to y'all now. I'm not embarrassed to say Ashe, O for O. I'm not switching up. These are my children. I love you. I'm gonna give you a kiss. Mwah. I dare you to laugh at me. Don't laugh at me while I'm kissing my children over the phone. Like, I'm going to do all that stuff. But I believe that, we have to do those things because that's what we need. My children need that. Every morning, I got to do that for them. So I believe that accepting yourself is about, always being yourself and not switching up, and knowing when we should stand up for the truth, because it does take discretion sometimes. But like one of the white guys in my job, like sometimes white people just be saying stuff, bro. But he said like he wasn't talking to me, but I heard him on the phone. He's like, "What's up, my nizzle?" I'm like, dude, like you don't even know what you're saying. You just saying it because you think that's cool. He got off the phone. I'm like, look, like that word nizzle is too close to saying nigga. He said, what? I said, look, you don't even know what you're saying. I know where that come from. It's a play on the word nigga. I don't want you to say it when you're around me. He was like, okay. But I'm just like, I feel like stuff like that gotta be done. We don't gotta go out our way to be like, tell people what to say and what not to say. But I believe we can check people and be like, listen, I don't want to hear that when you're around me. Watch that. It'll make them think twice. And I believe that's the stuff that be needing to happen, like, because somewhere, some down the line, a Black person made them feel comfortable saying that. But that's damaging. That's damaging to Black minds, and it's damaging to our future. So I believe that, that's one of the things that I see with Black acceptance is, just being able to be yourself and being able to stand for the truth when it's time to stand.
Ashe. It's powerful. It's crazy you say that, right? Today I was at Refocus and I was sitting there and I walked in and I seen Taharka Bay, right? So he get to talking to me about, the YouTube video that he did with Bob and everything, and he in rare form. We in there just talking. We talking black, and there's this old, like 70-year-old white man in there, right? We just going in, right? So when he leave, I'm standing there. He made it his business. Oh yeah, how long you been coming here? Because I had talked to the minister Louis Farrakhan, and he told me that he was a vegan, and he did it for years. Da, 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 for real. And I looked at him. I said, "You're uncomfortable because you've seen two black men who accept who they are having a conversation, and it rattled your cage and made you feel like you needed to say something to break the jitters, right?" The reality is this: every time they see that we're comfortable, they're uncomfortable. You feel what I'm saying? Every time that they see that we love who we are, they're uncomfortable. They got to find a way because they know, right? They know. You feel what I'm saying? He felt though he had to insert and say something, right? Because he felt the pressure on his neck. Yeah, you done did something to some black people before, probably. You feel what I'm saying? And that's the reason why you felt as though you had to say that, right? Because if we were sitting there talking about rap or talking about something that was the typical black acceptance of identity in white conscious or not white conscious, but white society, right? He would have never said nothing. He would have looked and judged and went about his business. But when he seen two black men talking about black beauty, black love, black acceptance, right? He felt as though he had to say something. Like, I got a black friend, You know what I'm saying? And I'm sitting there and I told him, I said, okay, cool. And I went about my business because I felt as though I didn't need to say nothing because he was already so uncomfortable he couldn't wait to get his food and get out of there. But the reality is this: when we accept who we are, it shakes their cage. They don't want that. Look through history, right? Every time that we came together and fought for the interests of us to love us, right? It shook their cage. And what they did was they did something to create a shift. They gave some type of token or they gave some type of gesture to try to trick us to believe, that we have gotten an edge. All we did, was assimilate deeper into their society. And that's what they wanted from the get-go. The more that we accept their reality, the more we renounce ours. The more we accept, the typical black guy image that they want to be projected, the more we move away from being the serious, disciplined, black, militant people we are. Our people, are serious people. We're not buffoons. We're not clowns. But they want us to be that because it makes them feel comfortable, right? When we don't accept ourselves, they feel comfortable. When we accept who we are and we fully embrace it by the standards in the African-centered lens that defines that, it rattles their cage. They don't want that. They never did, and they never will. Please make sure that y'all are sharing this, y'all are liking this, and you're subscribing to this channel. If you feel as though that you're gaining something from this, please do that. Thank you, people. So, comrades, that question is still on the table if anybody else wanted to answer it. What defines or what's the what constitutes black acceptance?
First, I want to say that y'all brothers doing a good job and and speaking about this. Self-acceptance is revolutionary in the 21st century for us. And the reason I'm saying it because it's resistance, it's audacity, it's consciousness, it's intentional, it's deliberate, it's wholeness, it's healthy, it's a social phenomenon. And the reason why I'm saying it's a social phenomenon because it has the elements and the ingredients to bring people together, to mold them, to bind them, and allow them to move in togetherness. Because if we can't appreciate who we are, if we can't appreciate the ones that look like us, we can't appreciate our experiences as a people, We won't be able to appreciate the memory with the brother that Carre spoke about that reminds us of our possibility, our greatness. Because all those things is tied into appreciation. Everything has a history. Everything has a story, you know, and long as that story is connected, then you will always be able to pull from that particular source. You know, and every root, every tree that has a root has a foundation, have its power in that foundation. So I think that's why, you know, I'm truly a believer that revolutionary activity is rooted in self-appreciation, you know, for us in the 21st century, because you begin to move against everything that attempts to defoul it, underappreciates it, ignores it, defoul it, attack it. Because we, you know, our self-concept, our self-awareness, our culture has been under constant attack in this country. It's been on a constant attack. You know, it's been on attack since 639 to 642 AD, not only by Europeans, but also by the Arabs. You know, so everything that when we speak about in terms of appreciating ourselves, we're trying to protect who we are. We're trying to protect life, you know, and Africanness or our blackness represents life, you know, and when you begin to appreciate yourself, you begin to appreciate life, you know, and I think that your whole approach to everything, your whole approach to organizing, your whole approach to building family, your whole approach to developing a complementary relationship, your whole approach to rearing children, your whole approach into constructing families and communities, it's going to be different. It's going to be a reflection of that appreciation, because in that appreciation, there's life in there. There's love in there. There's dignity in it. There's self-respect within it. So all those things begin to play out, because self-respect, self-appreciation is really a practice. It's a way of living. It's a way of living. That's why I tie it to culture. You know, because when you're truly conscious about who you are culturally and spiritually, which is interconnected, then you're going to be able to practice those things as a way of life. That's when it becomes a meiotic man or meiotic woman. That's how you begin to live Mayat. That's how you begin to speak Mayat. You know, so all those things are tied together. It's like a chain. Hotel.
We got Mama Tiombe wants to.
Yep. All right. So, Hotep, a bibi for holy brother Ifa Vamila. So I see the comment that you put. I think the first thing that constitutes self-acceptance is self-knowledge. And when I read it, it reminded me, I don't know if anybody on here has seen that clip of Richard Pryor. It's like that skit where he's doing that the archaeology excursion, and they go into it's been a while since I saw it, but was it a pyramid?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, There was in Kemet, yeah.
Look at the car. Look at the car. He like, yeah, tell him about it. The car is a storyteller, so he like telling stories. He like hearing them too. So they go in there and they discover all this proof of who we are before we were told who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gets in there, man, he just, what? We were doing this, we were doing that. And you can just hear it in his voice. And when you come into knowledge, when you get that knowledge of self, that's how it feels. I remember when I first started reading. I remember when I first started like watching documentaries. And I was coughing. Did you know that we were? Because this wasn't what we was learning. Mm-hmm. This wasn't what we were being educated to believe. We were being miseducated to believe the opposite. Mm-hmm. And I said, whoa. And so I saw that clip years after my own experience into coming into knowledge, But every time I think about what that feeling felt like, he did it so well, right? And for those of you who haven't seen the clip, here's a spoiler alert though. So my man's in there going off. He's so excited, right? He's like, I gotta go tell everybody. I gotta go tell everybody. Don't you know they closed that man up in there? They close him up in there, and it's a true reflection of what this society would have happen, is that knowledge, they want to keep it as shut off as possible. So when we think about the trinkets, when we think about, the things that are used to kind of quell that desire to find out more, quell that desire to rise up, that's a perfect example of how that comes about, right? They don't want you to really read the books that are going to tell you the truth, right? The curriculum that they have is not going to provide you with that. And if they are strategic enough through the educational system, through the laws that they enact, through the propaganda that they continuously cycle and allow to permeate our minds, whether it's music or movies, TV shows, right? If you're not careful, they'll succeed. And so you have to understand your power in it. That self-acceptance, that self-knowledge also comes with a self-power that you already have within you. They don't want you to know that you have it, right? They don't want you to know your greatness. They don't want you to know your power. They don't want you to know your capability, your possibility. They don't want you to know any of that, but it's there. And so, brother Ifa, I like that you brought that up, because it took me back to that moment. And every time I see that clip or even think about that clip, I feel a little joyful inside, because it's just like that's that moment that I love for other people to feel as well. So that same self-knowledge that you have and that you gain, you gotta share that with others. That's a part of that self-acceptance, is that once you know about yourself, you have to see the value and the purpose in it so much that you are now telling somebody else about whether or not you think they're going to be receptive to it. You still plant the seeds. I've been walking this path for, what we at, like 8 years now. My father be saying Ashe, My brother be telling me Happy Kwanzaa. It's baby steps. It's baby steps. And they do that because of how I live, because of how welcoming. I don't tell them, like, hey, I got a community event. I invite them out. Come see. We're gonna be doing some libation. Come out here, see this. Come on, come say some names with us. Come connect with our ancestors. And I bring them into that because I want them to feel that. Even on my job, I hit them with an Ashe every now and then. You know what I mean? My supervisor, he sent me a couple of documentaries the other day that I hadn't seen yet. And it's got some of the heavy hitters that, you typically see in a lot of the videos that circulate. And so being able to walk it, live it, speak it, wear it, believe it, share it, that's all a part of it. Because it becomes less about what you are doing and more about who you are being. Okay. Gregory said he just looked it up.
Okay.
Ashe. There we go.
So I'm gonna read an insert coming out of The Juggernaut and the Struggle, dealing with developing African value and acceptance. It says African values are reliant upon us learning and studying our story and importance. We must learn and practice our culture, and that starts with us knowing our history and our culture before that of Europeans. We spend too much time including them into our lives. To study our way is a sacred journey that has no room for white issues. Our value cannot include them. The more we learn of our way, the further we pull away from their confused culture. At the end of the day, we're talking about being able to value who we are. When you accept yourself, you value yourself. You can't value yourself when you're trying to immerse yourself into a culture that does not want to accept you. That's like being around a bunch of people that don't like you, and every time you come around, they make you feel uncomfortable for being around, but you just keep coming around. After a while, it'll start wearing on you, and you'll just become the person that they step on. At the end of the day, to accept yourself is to be in spaces that are sacred, that add to your own personal value. And we can't get that in white culture America. We can't get that, so we got to continue to keep doing the work.
I'll say.
How do I
That
get
as
your
well.
book, Baba Adisa? I got to drop them off to you. We sort of been got up so I can give you a book, brother, but I'm always on Vanguard, so I can never really get up with you because I'm always on security. But we'll make it happen. You still got my phone number, so just reach out to me and we'll make it happen. All right. Baba the Car, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because that self-acceptance part is very key in the aspect of our development, and also being able to allow ancestors to manifest through our body. One of the things that like one of the traditional healers from South Africa, she was a woman. She was talking about how like some of us, we have like ancestral callings in the sense of the ability for ancestors to manifest through our body and through our personality, because some of us, we made agreements to be born through certain bloodlines so that we can come back to earth, and a part of those agreements would allow certain ancestors to manifest through us at a certain point. But in order for that to happen, we had to be living life a certain way to be able to be going through certain rituals, not necessarily saying a specific formal ritual, but they're talking about like stages in your life, because a child has to be at a certain development in itself to start walking. But in the same way as an adult, in order for you to manifest certain powers and to live your life a certain way, where we're creating books, where people is writing music, where somebody is building a family. These things are actual milestones that are done because we're allowing energy to manifest through our body. So I believe that, when it comes to really elevating ourselves and living to our full potential, we have to be able to accept ourselves in a lot of ways so that the extra energy from the spirit world can move with us. Um, and I believe that's why we see people that we think is doing, unbelievable stuff, miracle stuff, like somebody like Michael Jackson or Kobe Bryant, or looking at our ancestors like, Gabriel Prosser, who summoned about 40,000 men, to do a revolt. Now, that's half of a football stadium, 40,000 men, you know. And so I believe when people start doing things like this, it's because it's a level of self-acceptance where nothing is going to get in their way. Absolutely nothing. And they're all the way walking full steam who they're supposed to be. And so I believe that, self-acceptance is extremely important when it comes to us being able to leave no stone unturned before we leave Earth.
Not sure. So
Real quick.
we go. I'm gonna let you go. We know we almost at that time frame. But go ahead,
Yeah.
Bob.
I just want to add on to what the brother just said, because I'm thinking about how we came to be at this point. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with PLM, and how Baba, made that summit. You know what I mean? He was called upon, and that's why PLM is a symbol of that self-appreciation. And what we have been able to produce in terms of philosophy and ideology, and also practice. You know what I'm saying? In developing that. And expanding it through the Watoto Center and through other little other significant projects that we've done, is a qualifying example of what self-appreciation is. You know what I mean? Your work, the Baba work, the sisters' work. You know what I mean? Everything that we have been able to do as an organization is an example and a qualification of that self-respect. And that's the one thing that we got to be able to do, because it's here and now, you know. And the brother been working, you know, throughout this country, you know what I mean, to bring this thing to a whole nother level and raising the consciousness of our people. And that right there is self-appreciation. And it's revolutionary in our time. Hotep.
Hotep, that's powerful. Pan-Africanism is nothing but the acceptance of the path that we grow towards becoming African-centered. You know, Baba broke it down, you know, so well last night, you know, how he broke down all African and ism. And he broke it down, I mean, is all African ideologies, you know, concepts, ideas. That's what it is. And being able to allow that to be the thing that governs you, you know. But we got to do away with white thought. We got to do away with their reality. Their reality is what puts us in these bondage and these chains. You know, our freedom is in a BB448. You know, that's where it is. You know, but we got to get away from their reality. And that's the reason why we got to continue to have these talks right here. You know, like at the end of the day, we're always going to come correct. We're always going to bring the topics that's going to deal with the things that's there and near. We're always going to talk about the things that most people run from. We got to talk about the elephant in the room. A lot of us are really not accepting who we are because we don't know who we are. It's a process of learning about our culture, not from the eyes of our enemy. We have so many scholars out here that is doing the work. Pick up a book, study, learn, get with an organization that's doing the work, do your own research. Let's build it. With that, I say peace. Keep doing what you're doing, and always stay Black and centered.
BB4